Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for introducing us. I'm Chris Saxon. I'm part of Stephen Feuerstein's Oracle Developer Advocate team. As Taylor said, if you've got any questions, just put them in the window. I'll be keeping an eye on them. If they're relevant, I'll ask them as we go along to Robert and Sabine. If they're not, we'll take them in the end. But just put them in the question box and I'll handle those. Today we've got presenting Sabine and Robert. They're both self-employed consultants and members of Its People. Sabine is heavily involved in the DOAG community and Oracle development community generally, working on PL/SQL, SQL Developer and Apex. And Robert is self-employed as well. He's usually a technical architect with a database-centric view of the world. And as well, he's member an OD Token IAG member. He's also an active member of DOAG, where he's in charge of cloud topics. So let's look at what we're going to cover today. And what we're going to be looking at is it's an introduction to scripting with SQLcl. We're going to be looking at things you can do using JavaScript in SQLcl. We're not going to be covering an introduction to JavaScript itself. So if you're not familiar with it, don't worry too much. The examples are fairly basic, so you should be able to follow along. But if you are struggling, just read up and have a look on that later. And we're not going to give a full overview of all the features of SQLcl. We're just going to give you some ideas of the kind of possibilities you can do to improve your scripts using SQLcl over SQL+. So let's take a look and see what is SQLcl and why do we have this available? Why are we using this? So, and as we say, all the scripts and slides will be available for download. So if you want to use any of this stuff, you'll be able to access it later. And so, what's SQLcl? So this is the new SQL+. So SQL+ has been around for a very long time, and it hasn't really changed in that much. So a few years ago, we started developing SQLcl, and this is actually born out of the SQL Developer development. It's the command line interface for SQL Developer. It's been around for a few years, like I say, but it finally went production in open world last year. It's a very small download. It's less than 20 megabytes or something like that, and it's also shipped with all future releases of Oracle. So if you've got 12.2, if you're lucky enough to be using that, you'll find that in the Oracle Home bin directory. And we're working hard to improve this and keep it moving and keep it up to date. So do check for updates. Do look to see how what's changed recently. But so why did we need this? Why did we need SQLcl over SQL+? As I said, SQL+, it's been around for forever and ever, and it's been really stable, and it's been really great for running basic SQL and PL/SQL scripts. But it's a bit challenging if you want to do something a bit more complicated that you can't do within PL/SQL itself. For example, common example is things like release scripts. Often you want to do things like create table if not exists, or maybe you want to have some branching logic, so you run different code paths, you're creating different tables or creating different procedures based on what's happened early in the script, or as you're deploying to different client sites and things like that. That was really challenging to the point of being almost impossible with SQL+. SQLcl makes a lot of these things possible and potentially even very easy. And we're going to look at some examples how we can do that. So what we like to say is that SQLcl is really like SQL++. So it's the, bit like we had C and we had SQL++, C++, so now we've got SQL++ and SQLcl. So in terms of what kind of scripting we can do in SQLcl, so the kind of languages we support and so on. So SQLcl, just to make this clear, is a Java program. So this, and it supports all the languages that conform to this JSR 223 specifications. So that's things like JavaScript. There's a whole bunch of other languages as well that includes. So we'll come to those in a bit more at the end. But you've now got a lot more power when you're trying to script in a SQL command line compared to SQL+. And as I said, this is now SQL++. So let's move on and take a look at some of the basics of scripting in SQLcl. And we've got a slide here which seems to have quite a lot of text on it. So Robert, can you tell us what is all this? There's a lot of information here. What's going on?
So the information on the right side is just to scare you a little bit, or on the other side, this is one of the very rare opportunities where you can show the whole documentation of a feature of Oracle product feature on a single slide. In fact, this is all we've got as documentation for scripting in SQLcl. This is in fact the README of the Oracle DB Tools GitHub repository. You see the URL over here, and if you opening this URL, you get this page. And this page tells you that when you want to script in SQLcl, the scripting language is enhanced by a couple of, okay, so scripting languages are not object-oriented, so not by objects. We call them globals here. And those are the list of the globals that will be added to your scripting language. And I've put the most important on the left side where you can read it way better. So we have one global that is called CTX for context. And the CTX global gives you functions for writing to the screen for your console or reading from your console, so basically print and read. And then we have a global called SQLcl that gives you access to the SQLcl session or the SQLcl engine itself. So you have a statement, you have a function or method called SQLcl set statement that you can use to fill up the buffer of SQLcl, the command line buffer, as if you were typing it into your keyboard. And once you're finished with filling up the buffer, you can say SQLcl run, and then the buffer will be executed. And there are other functions. The most important of the other ones are the util global that gives you functions that are similar to kill SQL execute immediate. And we show you those in action in a couple of seconds. So let's move on.
Okay, so just one thing, someone was asking what GitHub is. So that's a, do you want to talk about GitHub, Robert, briefly?
Okay, so GitHub, yeah, GitHub is basically a public, Git is a version control system. So version control, so you can make versions of your code for developing. And Git is one of those tools, and GitHub is a public repository for those source code files. So you can go to GitHub, set up an account for free, and can put your code there, and it will be versioned over there. And you can as well have public, you can have paid accounts and have a little more features and all kind of that. And Oracle happens to have a couple of GitHub accounts, and one of those is the Oracle DB Tools GitHub account, and they gather all their snippets and all kinds of stuff over there. And when you go into the SQLcl part here, over here, the SQLcl part, there's a directory tree where you can download lots of stuff. Its people, by the way, has its own GitHub repository, and our demos from this slide, from this presentation, are uploaded there.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Thanks. Just to let you know, you got some static on your line. If you can just check your mic, that'd be grand.
I will do my very best.
Okay, thanks. All right then. So that's a brief overview. How do we actually get started? So Sabine, how do we get running with SQLcl? How do we get in?
Well, I hope everyone knows how to use SQL+. So in that case, you just use it as you're used to invoke SQL+, really, but you type less characters in the beginning. If you look at the lower line, you see SQL space and then the user. That's the easiest. You can also have the password afterwards, a connect string, and have the sysdba if needed. SQL+ understands the easy connect syntax, so there's no need to have a TNS names aura, for instance. You can just type the host name, the SID, port, and so on to invoke it. So it's actually become easier than using SQL+. You need less characters.
Cool, that's pretty handy. So there's quite a few other command line parameters with SQL+. Are they still all compatible with SQLcl?
Well, they are, and if they are not, they're actually meant to be eventually, because the developing team tries to have all the functionality of SQL+ in the end within SQLcl.
Cool. All right, cool. So we've logged in. So Robert, how do we actually execute scripts? How is it different to SQL+?
Okay, so SQLcl provides two ways of executing scripts. One is the way we all know, by just typing an add in front of your script name, and SQLcl as well as SQL+ will go to the file system, load the script, and execute it. So nothing changed here. So if you have SQL scripts, they will all work in SQLcl. But SQLcl provides a new way and a new keyword, and that keyword is called script. And if you say script, you can say, as with the add command, you can say just script and script name, and then the SQLcl will go to the file system, load it, and execute it. But there is another option. You can say script followed by a carriage return or a line break. And after that, you can type your JavaScript on the fly, or you can paste it in. So there, most of my demos I'm going to show here will be using that way by just copying and pasting source code into the command line. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. All right then, so let's take a look at running our first script. So Sabine, can you tell us about persistence, about how variables work and things like that?
Sabine?
You with us, Sabine?
Sorry? All right. Yeah. If you're used to normal PL/SQL scripts within SQL+, you know that you can declare variables or constants and use them within the scope of the script. This is different when using a scripting language like JavaScript. You can declare a variable and assign a value, and then the script is finished, and at some point later in time you can use that variable again and it will still hold that value. This can be very tricky if you're not expecting it, but it can also be very useful. So it completely depends on yourself, what you're going to do with it. And we're going to show it in a little demo. And I think on the next slide there's the code. Yeah, right. So first thing you should notice is the script keyword that Robert mentioned already. Don't forget it, because otherwise SQL+ will just be confused and can't do anything sensible. And in blue you can see the var keyword, which means variable declaration. We have one very simple variable which is called don't forget. That's a simple string. And we also have a more complicated variable which is called my history. The Java type might look a bit surprising for people not used to it, but you have to remember we are in the Java virtual machine, so we have access to Java objects too, which is very helpful because the multi-line history is part of the of SQLcl, and we can access it. So we show you later on what we can do with it. And so we have three variable declarations and we have one function that you see. When we execute the script, the function is not executed, it's just declared, like in PL/SQL at compile time. On the next slide, we have the next script. So the first script was finished by slash, and here we have another script. And here you can see that the history, my history, is actually referenced. You can set the maximum size, for instance, which is set to some initial value, and here we set it to 20, which will cut it down. And then you can also print the history size just for information purposes. And there's another small script where we can actually print out the contents of the don't forget variable. It could have been declared 3 hours earlier, doesn't matter. If you didn't close the session, the value will still be there, although the first script has finished already. Right now for the demo.
Okay, so don't be confused because we can share only one screen. I will show all the demos and Sabine's demos as well. So we have, if you can see my screen, this is the script, or all the scripts you see on the screen together, and I'm going to run these right now. I'm switching to my virtual machine where the Oracle database is running and just starting up SQLcl by connecting to a user Jeff with the secret password Jeff. And you probably noticed that the startup of SQLcl is a little bit slower than you're used to when to SQL+. That is because it's a Java program, but once it's up and running, it is as fast as SQL+. So first thing we are doing, this is a SQL script because I have mixed scripts and SQL, and I'm going to start that right away by typing the add character. And a cool thing about SQLcl, it has a command line completion. So I just typed a 1 followed by a dot and press the tab key. And on the bottom of the stream, SQLcl shows me all the files in this directory that are matching these, my first characters. So I'm pressing, I like to start 0101 and the SQL part and just hit return. And off we go. So this is my first. This is the first script. As Sabine said, nothing is to see on the screen. Those are just declarations. And the next script does something with those declarations, with those declared variables and functions. And we can still do this. And this is again another script. Keep in mind we could have done selects and pure SQL blocks altogether. Like here, I'm just doing something real, doing selects and all kind of stuff. And even if I'm doing selects and all kind of stuff, we still can access the don't forget variable here, and it says by herbs. So this was the first demo, and I'm going back to the slides.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Robert. That's quite interesting. So now we can actually have kind of saved functions almost, that's pretty handy. So you're going to talk about, there's a new keyword, Alias, which I think can also help us with these kind of saved routines as well. Can you explain a bit more about how that works?
Yeah, aliases are suitable for small recurring tasks. So you can assign SQL, pure SQL, or new JavaScript or scripts to aliases. The important thing about aliases, its definitions are persistent. So you have to define an alias only once, and SQLcl stores it inside the file system. If you have a Unix file system, it will be in your home directory, an XML file in your .sqlcl directory that is created by SQLcl. Or if you're on Windows, you will find it under appdata in your user directory under appdata roaming SQLcl. And so you have to define an alias only once and can use it in every SQL session ever after. And this is how it looks like if you like to define a pure SQL alias. So the keyword is alias, and then the name of the alias, and followed by the pure SQL block, begin and end. And if you like to define an alias in script, this is how the syntax looks like. And what this script does, it prints out the content of the don't forget variable, but only if it is defined. Otherwise, it will just print nothing. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we got these aliases, but I can imagine there'd be times where you'd want to pass values in. So you've got a small repeatable thing, but maybe you want to use it to create a table or something like that. It'd be useful to pass values in. So can you do that?
Yeah, you can pass parameters, but only to pure SQL. Parameters for scripts are not supported. You have to use those predefined variables. So as in this example here, you can access a variable that you have previously defined as parameter, but you can't pass parameters via command line to a script. But this works to pure SQL aliases. I think there is room for improvement for the development team.
Yep. Okay, that's cool. So let's move on, talk about kind of your settings. I know in SQL Plus I've got good old login.sql, which I use to configure various things about how things will look, you know, what my page size and so on. Is there similar that exists in SQLcl, or how does that work? Is it similar? Can we?
Yes, if you're used to using login SQL, you can still have that in SQLcl. And of course, it's quite useful. Think of preloading functions, for instance, if you're using extensive JavaScripting, scripting, or for instance, you can customize your prompt. Like in SQL Developer, you can have a connection color to make the dangerous connections hot pink, for instance, and the the easier ones light green. And you can also have that in SQLcl. We will have a short demo for it. And that's a nice demonstration actually of the execute return one column command, which you can see in the third line. If you declare a variable and assign the value of that statement directly to it, it will be executed immediately. The function execute return one call can be thought of as execute immediate. So we say select user from dual, and in the next line we just do a normal if statement and check if the user is called Jeff. If so, we set the command prompt with the set SQL prompt statement. We are using the SQLcl set statement, which means we put it into the buffer first. You can spot the difference. In one line we have background green, and the other line we have background red. And in the end, after we've, thank you. And once we've done that, we have to say SQLcl run to make this change really active. If you could just see the demo, you can, exactly. Here you can see we connected as Jeff in the first line, then we have some banner stuff, and then we have a green prompt, and when we connect as Chris, we get a red prompt. I think that's quite useful.
Yeah, I think that's pretty handy as well. I mean, it's making sure you're in development versus production and having some indicator like that. It's pretty cool. You can do some things like use emojis on this as well, can't you? Which is quite fun.
If you are on a Mac, yes, I think Windows users still have to wait for.
Right. Oh well, so those of us on Windows still have to wait. Okay. All right then. So let's move on. So Robert, we've kind of logged in, we've connected, we've set things up. How can we actually display stuff to the screen? So we've got a script and we want to see the output and see what's happened on our screen.
Yeah. As I mentioned on the documentation slide, there's a global called CTX, and CTX has a function that is called write, and that writes out output to the screen. But it behaves a little odd because it needs a trailing \n at the end of every string. If this \n is not there, then there is no output produced. And while playing around, we accidentally found out that the keyword print works as well. So you can use write, CTX write and print. And print, either way, works like expected, so there's no need for any additional characters at the end of the string. But print obviously uses different output streams, and I'm going to show you that. So if you have a piece of code like this here with alternating CTX write and print commands, and I've numbered them down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you run this, my expectation would be that I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the screen. But if you really run this, this is what you're getting. So first all the output of the print commands, followed by all the CTX commands. That is, they are using different output streams, and they are ordered that way. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, so you probably want to stick with one or the other and not mix and match unless you're really thinking about what you're doing, is kind of what you're saying here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay then. So we've got our output. Let's, as I was saying at the start, with SQL+, you couldn't do, or it's very tricky to do things like if this then that, and some kind of flow control to do different kind of actions. I understand we can do this in SQLcl, Sabine. Can you talk a bit more about flow control and how this works in SQLcl?
Well, yes, as you mentioned already, it used to be a bit difficult, and people developed kind of different workarounds, like spooling into new script and then execute this generated script and or define variables. It was all a bit clumsy. With flow control, well, that summarizes like if then else, case, loops, and even goto, which, well, has some justification in some cases. Yeah, but you can have all that with modern scripting languages. So yes, you have access to the SQLcl interpreter. You can load other files, so you're much more flexible than you used to be. And Robert, I think, is going to show some of the use cases.
Okay. So, well, let's start with if then else and see some examples of how these kind of things can work.
Yeah, right. Okay. First thing we do is declare a variable with the tab name, because we want to create a table if it doesn't exist already. So this is a two-part script, and this is part one. The table we want to create is SQLcl demo. And first of all, we are going to check if the table is there already or not. You can see that we have to concatenate the select statement because we're using a multi-line string. And we just do select count star from tabs where table name is SQLcl demo. Please note, in JavaScript we can have different characters for the start and the end of a string. It can be single quotes or double quotes, depending on what we need, which is very helpful in the last line where table name equals. You can see it. Just note the difference. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for highlighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do a variable tab count and fill it with the result of execute return one call. Execute return one call. And now on the next slide, we have that if statement. If the tab count is 0, so the table is not there, we're going to create it. And here we've got a lot of text, but don't be afraid. Look at the yellow text. It says set echo on, set feedback on, things that should look very, very familiar to you if you have been using SQL+ for ages. Then we have the create table statement with the tab name as a variable again. Then column declarations. Next line, set server output, alter table for the primary key. So things you've been using for ages. We're going to fill those lines into the buffer, and again with the SQLcl run in one of the last lines, we're going to execute all those lines in the buffer. Okay. And the else tells us what to do if the table is already there. It just tells the user that it already existed.
Okay, that's pretty neat. It seems a lot of code to just kind of create a table there in your SQLcl select statement there. Is there a particular reason for that, or?
Well, it's not that much code. It's just that we put a lot of checks into it, and so.
Okay. So I'm going to do a live demo here. So let's see if we can create the table live. I'm switching controllers here, and this is the script in a whole here, as Sabine just showed you in 2 parts. And I'm going to copy and paste that. So first copying that, switching over to my SQLcl session, typing script, and pasting it in. No, that wasn't what I wanted. Here, paste it. Here we go. So, and I'm executing that with a slash. One more. Yeah, one more. Okay, so let's see. This is copy and pasting errors here. One more time, and execute it with a slash. And the first thing we got a table SQLcl demo already exists because I created it in my last demo run. Let's drop that away. Drop table SQLcl demo. And now let's rerun the script. Yeah, copy and paste again. Let's copy it here. Next try. This is live, yes, you can see here. Pasting. Here we go. And now the table is created. Yeah? We have a tab count of 0. So the SQLcl demo wasn't created, and this message comes from the create table, and this alter table comes from the create of the primary key. So now we have created a table, only if it doesn't exist already. Back to the slides.
Yeah. So one thing, someone's just asking, they've been using SQL Plus for a long time. We've got a lot of Java in here. So can you just talk a bit about kind of the difference here about why we've got all this Java as opposed to standard SQL scripts?
The main reason is you can do a lot more. Actually, we don't have Java, we have JavaScript here. This is a little difference. And the main reason is because we want to show you that it's possible right now. You can use all those SQL scripts, all your SQL scripts you have available will run in SQLcl as they are running in SQL+, but we are going to show you all the new stuff here. And if you want to do something like that in SQL+, you can't do that in SQL+ or in SQL scripts. You have to go to PL/SQL for with dynamic SQL, or execute immediate and all kind of stuff with all those problems that are in PL/SQL blocks that roles don't work and all this stuff. This is just the new way of doing this. This is the main reason, and our presentation is all about showing you this new stuff. This is why we are using Java here, JavaScript here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's to do stuff which you can't do in traditional SQL or PL/SQL. Things like, if like you just said, if a table exists, do this action versus this action, or call different scripts. So you don't have to use Java. All of this is entirely optional. You could use SQLcl in exactly the same way you use SQL Plus, but this adds a lot more power if you want it. I think that's the thing we're trying to get across here, isn't it, Robert?
Yeah, exactly. And the next demo is all about that. You can't do any loops in your SQL scripts. Again, you have to go to PL/SQL if you do this. And this is how loops are working in JavaScript. If you have ever seen written a line of Java or C, this is the standard syntax of a for loop, and I wanted to do something useful here. So I'm going to calculate the Fibonacci sequence inside this loop. And there are a couple of interesting stuff here. The first thing, this is the loop, and I'm declaring the index variable here. This is called I, starting with 2, and this is my break condition, so the loop will iterate as long as this condition is true, so I is smaller than n. And at the end of each iteration, this statement will be executed, in this case I++, so I will be incremented by 1. And so these two lines are the calculations you need to do to calculate the Fibonacci sequence. And then comes the interesting part. I have I declare a variable called binds over here for bind variables, and I say, okay, bind variable is an empty object, and I can put fields into the object just by naming them. I don't have to declare them. So I push the variable I for index and F for a Fibonacci value inside this bind object, and this should look familiar here. I'm saying util execute, insert into, and I'm using those bind variables over here. By the way, this is the just a line break here, so this is the binds variable, and they are referenced here. And by the way, it is as in PL/SQL, those references for two bind variables are not by name, they are by position. So I could have chosen totally different names for the binds variable and the actually binds inside the if statement here.
Yeah, so something to be careful. Go on.
Yeah, okay. So the next part of this
quickly, one question that's come in, someone's asking, so you know traditional SQL plus substitution variables, can we use those with SQLcl, or does that?
I think they will. I think they will work. I haven't tried it really, but I think I tried it once by accident. So I'm not sure. I have to try it. I have to try it out. But but I think SQLcl will do a parser run before executing actually the script and do a replace for those values as in SQL scripts. But I won't put my hand into any kind of fire or something like that for that. Just try it out.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Good. Okay. So that is the next part of the script, and what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the, so we have inserted the values into our table, and now we are selecting from the table just 3 rows to not to get that much output per screen. And the important part is, again, this statement will be executed at the time of declaration. And after that, we have an array with all the result columns and rows inside our variable called red. And in the next part of the script, I'm looping through this array here. Again, this is a for loop, and my breaking condition is loop through all the elements of my array. And what I'm doing here, I'm building up a string where I'm calling a little script called demo SQL and passing my values, my result values as parameters. So this one here accesses the actual content of the rows and of the current row, the index variable. I have to write those or to spell those in uppercase because Oracle column names are uppercase by default, and JavaScript is case sensitive. And this is the Fibonacci column. You see those two here. And so I'm building up what I'm doing here. I'm building up a string, pushing it into SQLcl, the command line buffer here at the end, and executing it. And this is the modern way of spooling out the script and executing it from the file system without having to go to the file system. So this is, by the way, what the little demo script does. The only thing it does is it selects the 2 parameters from dual so that we see something on the screen. So let's see how this works out. I'm going.
I think the interesting thing to mention here is that you can actually switch from the JavaScript context to SQL again and then come back. Yeah. That's something, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, Sabine. Thank you for pointing that out. And so let's see how this works. I'm typing script here, going to my editor, going to the next script, copying it, and pasting it here. And let's execute that. So what we are seeing on the screen here, the insert is produces no output, but this is the output of the, this is the string we just assembled. So those are 3 calls to a little SQL script, and I'm running that, and I get errors here because I am accidentally in the wrong directory. It doesn't find the demo script, and this is a cool new feature of SQLcl. It finally has a cd command, and I can just say cd in the O2 directory, and again command line completion works, and now I'm in the right script, and let's run this again. Paste. Oh no, oh sorry, yeah, I just copied that. Let's go here once more, script, paste. And let's rerun this. And now it works, and we get the the parameters we passed in on the screen. So, good.
Cool, thank you. All right, so we see we're actually more like a proper programming language now. We can do if then else, we can do loops and so on. And I think the thing to perhaps make clear here is like you can just use it like SQL+ and run all your standard SQL commands. So if you've got any SQL statement that you want to run in SQL+, it also works in SQLcl. This is just extra stuff you could do on top, isn't it? It's
exactly.
Okay, so let's move on and look at something a bit more advanced. Let's say I've got all my pictures of my lovely daughters. I've got them on my laptop and I want to load them into a database. So they're on my client machine. What I actually want to do is send them to a database, and these are blob files. I understand we've got an example which shows how we can do that. So Sabine, can you talk us through how that works?
Yes, well, in this case, we don't have to move the files to the server first to load them into the database, which is really nice, because we can actually use Java classes that do the reading of the files for us. Yeah, the demo will be, we are going to copy a little image to a table we created before. Don't be afraid. I know there is a lot of code. You can use it more or less as a blueprint or template because it's always the same. You just have to replace your own paths or so. I'm just going to show a few highlights in this code. One is the Java NIO, the native IO file that we can use. So as mentioned before, we can make use of the Java classes in the Java virtual machine. Of course, we need the path of the file in the same line, and we have to define a blob and a binary stream. If we had a character, a CLOB, then we would use an ASCII stream, but it works the same way. We have a bind map, which we fill with the blob itself and the file path, because we're going to move that into the database too.
Okay, so I see you using actual, we were just in JavaScript, but you've got actual classic Java there as well. So why are you using Java classes?
Because we can.
Okay.
No, in this case, it's the most useful thing to do, because the functionality of the features is already there and we don't need to fill around with any other solutions. In the Java machine we can just access it, so why not use it? Okay, can we move on to the... Thank you.
Here we go.
All right. So next thing we do is actually util execute. And again, the yellow characters are the ones that should calm you down. They look familiar. We say insert into and use the values that we read before. When again, we have the binding and the bind map. If the statement fails, we just print out some error message. And if it succeeds, we actually do a commit, which you can see in the middle of the script. And then we query the file, we query the table that we just created to check if the file is really there.
Okay, I'd see you've got your column name is in German there, so Grosser. Is there any particular reason you've gone for that as opposed to English
actually,
names?
It's quite handy because it minimizes the risk of running into any reserved words or so. It's well, one of the few advantages of having a non-English native language.
See, that's cool.
Okay. Good. So I'm going to show this right now. This is the script, and this time I'm just copying and pasting the call to the script and switching to the a correct directory. So let's see. And let's just execute that. So you see, the first time it took a while, but once all the Java classes are loaded, the execution is a lot faster in the second time or in the third time. So again, this is a kind of Java thing, and we've loaded these image 3 times right now. And let's have a look on what we just loaded. I'm switching to SQL Developer right now. This is SQL Developer.
This is a really cool feature if you haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. So let's just call query. So those are the files I just uploaded right now. Let's have a look at one of those here. And you can say in SQL Developer display as image here. I don't know if you see my mouse. I'm just making a checkbox here. And this is the content of the image you just uploaded. Anyone knows this guy? Sabine, tell us, who is this?
Well, the famous Ned Ryerson from the wonderful film Groundhog Day. I hope you all know it. If not, go and watch it. It's quite old by now, but it's, well, timeless.
Okay, so that's about loading blobs into the database.
Stop.
Okay.
Did you notice it does umlauts? At the column headers.
Where? Here? Yeah, this one?
Yes, we have the famous SZ and the Ö, the O umlaut. It actually works in SQLcl, so that's pretty cool.
Cool. So we can use more extended characters. I can imagine that's very handy for for non-English speakers.
For the European guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Okay.
Can I move on now?
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about arrays. So we've got data structures where we want to store multiple values. Have we got those in SQLcl? How do they work? Can you?
Yes, finally we have arrays, and I personally love arrays because they are very powerful structures, and in JavaScript you can store all kinds of data types in the same array. You can store simple types, objects, or even nested arrays. And I'm going to show you a real-world example. This is actually the first thing I wrote in SQLcl scripting that is in production at my customer side. What you're seeing here is the way it was before. We have a large deploy framework at our customer side, so we are deploying lots of code to all kinds of databases, more than 20 targets. And the first thing we are doing before deploying is making a sanity check. Do we have the correct configuration files? So we are going, we are reading all the passwords from our configuration file and doing a connect to the database just to see if the accounts are open and if the passwords are right. So in the old times, in the SQL Plus times, we did that by having huge lists of those define data password, and those are the values here. And in SQL Plus, you can't loop through those defines. You have to spell those out if you want to do the actual checks. And you can imagine that this is very, very error-prone if you mess with these files by hand. And this happens every month, or that happened every month to one of us. So now, what I'm doing now is the first script that is executed is this array here. And in our production side, we have a couple of more fields here. So I'm defining an array here, putting objects in there with 2 fields. At production, as I mentioned, we have more fields here. So the first field is the user, and the second field is the password. And once we have that into our SQLcl session, we can use it from every other script that follows then. So this is how it looks like if I want to loop through all those elements in the array. This looks familiar right now. This is a loop through all the elements. And in our testing environment, we get results back like this. So I have tested 125 users, 112 of them are open, 10 are locked, 1 had the wrong username, and 2 had the wrong password. And I know the last information because I have a parallel session, an additional session into the database where I have access to DBA users. So I can see if the user is there or if the user is there and the password is wrong, or if the user is missing. And this is this is the piece of code you need. You write if you want to access a specific value of the password or the username of a specific element in your array. JavaScript has a very cool feature where you can extend your array by your own functions. And this is what I'm doing here. So whenever you call users.filter and passing this function here, you will get in return a new array with all elements where this condition returns true. And since I assume that my users are unique, it is safe for me to just return the first hit. And if I want to use that in my code, this is how you do that. You just say, okay, this is the username I want to check for, and call get password username, and you can have you have the password afterwards and can do something useful in your script after that. I wanted to show you the demo, but because we are far advanced in the time, we are skipping this demo now and moving on. You just believe me that this works to SQL format.
Yeah, we'll believe you. So, Sabine, in terms of the output of our queries, I understand there's some cool things we can do here.
Yes, well, actually, you might wonder why this is called a demo, but never mind. It used to be a very, very cool demo with pipes and moving data from one database to the other. But the most important takeaway, I think, are the SQL format options. Robert, could you just have the next slide, please? Yes, please. Thanks. As you can see in the little select statement, we have a comment with insert in it. And if we execute that in SQLcl, it actually generates us a ready-made insert statement for every line we have in the table. So you could just copy and paste it or spool it to a file, spool it to a pipe, and execute it immediately on some other database. So that is very, very handy. And you can also have other output formats like JSON or XML. And I've just seen a request actually for Markdown. Maybe we'll have that in the future too. So that's a very, very useful thing we didn't have in SQL+, but something we can use now.
Okay, so let's move on. So we've got another a no demo here. What do you mean by no demo? What's going on here?
No demo means that is if I want to show you a demo where you can actually understand what's going on, I need a session on its own because it's a little bit too complicated here. But what I just wanted to talk about, because this is one of the real cool things you can do, we can have parallel sessions. We can use threads. So this is the main point. So this means we can execute parallel our scripts, and the most scripting languages are not thread available, so they are single threaded, but Java is not, and we can use the Java feature, Java threads for this. And if you go to the Oracle DB Tools GitHub repository, there are two demo scripts. One is called BG for background, which just shows you the basic framework, the code you have to type in to make that work. This is roughly about 70 lines of code. And there is an actual use case which is called longops.js, and this one makes use of this BG.js and opens a different, clones your current connection, opens a second connection to your database, and monitors $$ session longops. And whenever you happen to execute a select statement that is running so long that it fills up $$ session longops, you get a progress bar displayed on the screen. And this is really cool. And I personally used that for the array showcase I showed you before, and just to make to have my main session and to do the connection test with a different session in another thread, and have an DBA connection to the database to make the lookups to the $, now to the DBA users table. So the main takeaway here, you can program parallel in your scripting language. You can clone your SQL connection. You have access to the metadata of your current connection, except for the password. There should be password here, not credentials. And you can have as many parallel threads if you want. And so that should be enough for now.
Yep. Okay, so we're running we're running nearly at the hour, so let's just finish up quickly. You can see we've got various other things we've got on the screen, like Lua, Python, Nashorn, I'm never sure how you say that one. Can you talk about this, Sabine?
Yes, your last German word you learned today is Nashorn. It's actually the German word for rhino, which used to be the old implementation of the JavaScript engine in the Java virtual machine. You don't have to stick with JavaScript. You can also have other favorite scripting languages as long as they are implemented for the Java virtual machine. You can use also the other way around. You can use SQLcl in your app if you include the jar file for it. I don't know if you're going to show the Lua and Python demos right now.
2 minutes. That should be enough if I start right away. So
okay, I'll hand over to you then.
Okay. Okay. So let's just have a look at this. This is, well, as Sabine told you in the beginning, you can use, you're not bound to JavaScript. You can use Python. This is like what the Fibonacci demo will look in Python, or another scripting language. This is Lua. And all you have to do is actually to download this, the language, the jar file of the language, and point the class path to it. That's it. And if you start your SQLcl after that, you can just execute your script, and SQLcl will determine by the extension of your script file which interpreter it has to load. So let's see this in a demo. I'm going to my demo environment here. Let's exit SQLcl, switch to. By the way, you find all those demos downloadable on our GitHub repository and the link in the slides. So let's see. Let's run demo 7a. So this is the first runtime here, where you can see the where I don't have the class path set. So you see I could not, SQLcl complains and says I could not load the scripting engine for PY and Lua, so it well notices that there is a different language, and it doesn't know what to do. So what we are doing now, we are setting the class path, and it will work afterwards. So we are connected to the database. Now it's loading the Python, and this is, it takes a little bit longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Python takes a little bit longer. Here we go. And you see the Lua afterwards, and this one is lightning fast. That is because Lua is a very, very fast scripting language. And yeah, because we are running out of time, that should it be for now.
Okay.
Just one word. This is ECMAScript 6. This is the latest standard of JavaScript. This has a lot of cool improvement. And if you want to use that, all you have to do is to switch to Java 9 and give your Java one argument, and then we are good to go with the latest JavaScript dialect. And I won't show you that. And we are done right now.
Yes, so that's a lot of JavaScript. So this is what Edward Munch got his inspiration, right? The famous painting of JavaScript, isn't it? Yeah.
Now you know why he painted it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was really great. Thanks, Sabine and Robert. It was really interesting. We had quite a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we weren't quite able to get to all of them. Could you just let us know where we can get your slides and scripts from again? Can you show a link quickly for those?
Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Here, sorry, this one. Go to GitHub and type its people, and you can you will find our GitHub repository there. So github.com/its people. You will find a couple of presentations. There's one of the scripting SQLcl, and there are the scripts for downloading, or you will find it at the Kscope 17 page homepage. We have uploaded them there, and to quite perhaps will there be an email where we can afterwards we can put the link in there. So to all the people that joined us in the session here, we can probably email this link out.
Okay. Yeah, so certainly the recording of this will be available. So if you didn't catch that, anyone watching, just scroll straight to the end of the recording when you get to the end, so you can just double get those links. But it was github.com/its-people. That's right, isn't it, Robert?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Well, really interesting. Some positive comments for you in the questions. People seem to like that. Great. Thanks for doing this. As you say, we really want, this is the next step for command line scripting, use it as your interface to the database. So please, all of you watching, if you're inclined, have a go, try it out, and thanks for joining us today. So over to you, Taylor.
All right, thanks Chris, Sabina, and Robert, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Just a reminder, we will have the recording up on the CodeTalk webinar page as well as the CodeTalk playlist on the ODTUG YouTube channel by tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks everyone.
Can we